Walter wanted to marry a woman, but only he knew the name of this woman. It was his secret. The woman's name was Griselda. She was young and beautiful, and she was very nice. She was very poor, and she lived in a small house with her father. She cooked and cleaned for him every day. And now I'll tell you their story, said the clerk. One day, Griselda was at home with her father. "Today is the day," said Griselda. "Today we'll know the name of the king's wife. Who will it be? It's very exciting." "I think his wife will be a rich woman," said Griselda's father. But Griselda's father was wrong. And soon he heard somebody at the door. Griselda's father opened the door, and he saw Walter, the king of Salce. "I want to speak to you. I want to marry Griselda," said Walter. "Griselda? My Griselda?" said the father. "But this is strange. We're poor, and you're the king. Why do you want a poor wife?" "That's not important," said Walter. "She's the woman I love. Can I speak to her?" "Well, of course," said the father. And then Walter went inside the house, and he spoke to Griselda. "Griselda," said Walter, "will you be my wife? You must do everything I say." "I'm too poor for you," said Griselda. "I cook and clean. I work hard. I have a different kind of life. But I want you to be happy. I'll be your wife, and I promise to do everything you say." "That's good," said Walter. And then Griselda went home with Walter. Servants arrived. They gave Griselda a beautiful dress, and on that day Walter married Griselda. Walter and Griselda were very happy. The people of the city liked her. Soon Griselda had a beautiful baby girl. Walter was also happy, but he was worried about something. "Griselda is very nice," he thought. "But does she love me? Is she only nice because I'm the king? I have to know that she loves me." Then Walter did something very bad. One night, Griselda was in her room. She was with her daughter. Walter's servant came into the room. "I'm sorry it's late," said the servant, "but I must do what the king says. I must take your daughter." The servant took the child from Griselda. Griselda was very worried. "What's he going to do with my daughter? Is he going to kill her?" thought Griselda. But Griselda said nothing. "Now go," said Griselda to the servant, "and do what the king says." Then the servant took the child to Walter. "Don't tell anybody about this," said Walter to his servant. "Go with my daughter to Milan. She'll live with my sister. But remember, it's a secret. Nobody must know that this girl is my daughter." And then the king's servant took the child to Milan. What did Griselda do? Did she hate her husband? The answer to this question is no. Griselda didn't change. Does Griselda love me or not? Thought the king. Oh, I don't know. After 5 years, Griselda had another baby. It was a boy. Griselda was happy again. But Walter wasn't happy. "Griselda," said Walter, "do you promise that you'll always love me?" "Yes, I do," said Griselda. "I'm your wife, and I left my old life. I left my house and my father. I'll die for you. Is that what you want?" But Walter wasn't happy. "I have to know that she loves me," he thought. Soon, Griselda's son was 2 years old. One night, Griselda was in her room. She was with her son. Then, the servant came into her room again. "I must take your son," he said. "It's what the king wants." "First my daughter, and now my son," thought Griselda. "Oh, my children! What will Walter do to my son?" Griselda said goodbye to her son, and then the servant took the child to Walter. "Take my son to Bologna," said Walter. "And remember, this must be a secret." And then the servant left. He took the boy to a family in Bologna. "Now I'll know," thought the king. "Will Griselda love me now?" But Griselda didn't change. She didn't hate Walter. She was good to him. "I don't know what Walter is thinking," thought Griselda. "I promised to love him, and I will love him. But why does he do these bad things?" For some years, Walter was happy. His daughter was in Milan, and she was now 18 years old. And Walter began to worry again. "Does Griselda love me?" he thought again. And then he did another bad thing. The king called for Griselda, and he said to her, "I don't need you anymore. I want a new wife." Griselda said nothing, and then she left Walter's room. Walter then spoke to his servant. "Bring me my son and daughter," he said. "But it must be a secret. Don't tell anybody who these children are. I'll say to everybody that I'm going to marry the girl. Of course, I'm not going to marry her. She's my daughter. But nobody will know this." That afternoon, Walter spoke to Griselda again. "Griselda, a poor woman can't be my wife. I was wrong," he said. "My new wife is arriving. You must go back to your father's home. Leave your clothes here. I'll give them to my new wife." "Thank you for everything," said Griselda. "I'll go home to my father. He's old. I want you to be happy with your new wife." And then she left the room. The king was very sad. "I hate doing this," he thought. "I love her so much. but I must know that she loves me." The next day, Walter went to Griselda's house. He wanted to ask Griselda something. "Griselda, as you know, my new wife is arriving," said Walter. "I need somebody to clean her room. Will you help me?" "I'll be happy to help," said Griselda. And then she went to Walter's house. She cleaned the rooms, she made the beds, and she washed the plates. That morning, Griselda's son and daughter arrived. When Griselda saw the girl, she thought, "She's beautiful." And she thought of her daughter. "My daughter is the same age," she thought. And when Griselda saw the boy, she thought of her son. "The boy is so clever. My son is the same age." Of course, she didn't know that they were her children. When Griselda saw the king, she said, "That girl is very nice. She's beautiful. Be nice to her. I hope you'll be happy." "Stop this," said the king. "I don't want to do this any more. My dear wife Griselda, I love you very much. Griselda, you are my wife, and you're perfect." And then Walter called for his son and daughter. "Griselda, this is our daughter, and not my new wife. And this is our son. I'm very sorry. I only wanted you to love me, and now I know that you do. These are our children." Griselda was happy to see her children again. Thank you," said Griselda. "My children are safe." That night they had a big party. Griselda and Walter were both very happy. And Walter never worried about Griselda's love again. January wanted to find a wife, and he asked his friends to help him. "Don't find me an old wife," said January. "I want a young wife." January's friends found a wife for him. Her name was May. She was young, but she didn't have any money. January was happy with his wife. "I'm old," he thought, "but now I've got a young wife. I won't have any more problems. And May is very beautiful." But there was another person who thought that May was beautiful. It was January's servant. His name was Damien. Damien thought of May all the time. He didn't sleep very much. He didn't want to eat. He loved May. And now he had to see her every day with January. Soon Damien wasn't well. He didn't want to go to work anymore, and he stayed in bed. In bed, he wrote a letter to May. Then he put the letter in a small bag. That evening, January went to dinner. "Where's my servant Damien?" he said. "Damien isn't well," said another servant. "He's in bed now." "I'm sorry about that," said January. "He's a good servant. He works hard. I want to speak to him." After dinner, May and January visited Damien. May went to see Damien first. She sat next to him. "How are you?" asked May. Damien didn't say anything. He took the letter out of his bag, and then he gave the letter to May. "Don't speak to anybody about this letter," he said. When May was at home, she read Damien's letter. It was a love letter. May didn't know what to do. "Damien doesn't know my secret," she thought. "I love Damien, but he is poor, and my husband is rich. How can I help Damien? I want him to be well again," thought May. May wrote a letter to Damien, and then she visited him again. She gave Damien the letter. "Get well soon, Damien," she said, and then she left. Damien read the letter. The letter changed him. Soon he was well again. The next morning, Damien got up. Now he was happy. Now he wanted to go to work. January had a big house, and he had a beautiful garden. He often went there. It was his favorite place. Only January and May could go to the garden. January had a key, and he used the key to go into the garden. One day, January was in his garden. He looked at the trees and the flowers. It was a beautiful day. The weather was perfect. But January didn't feel very well. "Help! Help!" said January. "I can't see. I can't see anything. I'm blind." It was very sad. January couldn't see any more. May went to the garden, and she took January back to the house. January stayed in his room for 2 months. He didn't want to go out, and he often thought about May. "What about May?" he thought. "Now I can't see my beautiful wife. What is she doing? I can't see what she's doing. Does she love me? I know what I'll do. I'll tell her that she must always stay in the house. We'll stay here together." The next day, January said to May, "You must always sit next to me. Then I'll know what you're doing. Sometimes we can go to the garden, but we must go there together." Now it was May who was sad. Her house was a prison, and she thought more and more about Damien. Damien was also sad. "I can't speak to May," he thought. "January is always there. I must do something. I need to speak to May." May and Damien often wrote letters to each other. They wrote about their love. But Damien wanted more. He wanted to speak to May. He wrote a letter to her. In the letter he wrote, "May, take a key to the garden, and then give the key to me. January has a lot of keys. Then tell January that you want to go to the garden. Do it now." Damien gave the letter to May, and May did what Damien asked. She gave him the key. Then Damien went to the garden, and he waited there for January and May. Soon, January and May were in the garden. January was happy again. "I'm old, and I can't see," he said to May. "But I have you, my love. I love you so much, and I want to show you how much I love you. Tomorrow I'm going to give you all my money, and this house, and this garden." "January, what are you saying?" said May. "You're the only man in my life." But of course, there was another man in May's life, and that man was Damien. And now she saw Damien in the garden. "I'm hungry," said May. "I want to go to the apple tree. Then I can eat an apple. Wait here." But May didn't want any apples. She didn't go to the tree. She ran to meet Damien. January waited for May. He didn't know where she was. Now she was with Damien. But then everything changed. "I can see again. I can see," said January to himself. "How is this possible?" he thought. January didn't understand. "I must tell May. She'll be so happy." And so January looked at the apple tree, but May wasn't there. "Where's May?" thought January. And then he saw her. But he didn't only see May. He also saw a man. "Who are you? What are you doing?" "Leave this garden now," said January. Damien and May looked at January. "I think he can see us," said Damien. And then Damien ran. He was very fast, and soon he was outside the garden. Then May ran to speak to January. "What is it, my love?" she asked. "I can see now. I was so happy, I wanted to tell you. And then I saw you with a man. I think I saw you with somebody." "You can see again?" said May. "I'm so happy. But what are you talking about? A man? You can look everywhere in this garden, but you won't see a man, because there is no man." "I was so excited that I could see again," said January. "I think I saw something that wasn't there, but I thought there was somebody with you." "There was no man," said May. "Nobody can come into the garden. I want to go back home, my love. Then you can sleep. You're tired." "Yes, you're right," said January. "Of course there wasn't a man. Nobody can come into the garden. I want to go home now. We have to tell everybody. We'll have a party. Isn't it great? I'm not blind. I can see again." "And here my story ends," said the merchant. January was happy. He could see again. But there was something that January couldn't see. He couldn't see that May didn't love him, and that May loved Damien. January wasn't blind anymore, but love is always blind.